All right, so I got my clay to the height that I wanted to, and now I'm ready to move on for shaping. So to continue on from the last video on opening, pulling, and setting up your cylinder, now we're moving on to shaping. The most satisfying part, I think, about throwing is transforming this cylinder into something a little more elegant. So I'm going to make this into an orb vase, which is a little more orbish. So it looks more like a sphere. And so my setup is pretty good. I have a nice straight wall. My clay wall is about a 1/4 inch thick. And now I'm ready to start shaping the clay. So for shaping, I prefer shaping with this tool called a rib. And the way this works, your clay wall is here, your rib goes on the inside with your left hand, you push out into your clay wall, and then you slowly lift this up to expand it. And when I make an orb, I'm only focusing on the middle third of the piece. I'm keeping the top more or less the same size and the bottom. Once I get this blown out, then I can adjust the top and the bottom, but you really don't want to mess up the top as you shape, because if you mess up the top and this goes off center, it's going to radiate down your piece. So the goal is to keep your top centered and thick, and then you can always thin it out later. So my left hand will go on the inside. I'm going to push outwards, and then my right hand is going to be there for support. I can push the clay in if I push too hard, or I can kind of squeeze if I want to thin it out in a specific spot. Technically, you can shape with your fingers, but if you have a rib, this is my preferred method. Now, if you don't have a rib, the first shaping I'll do with my fingers so you can see. So the shape with your fingers, same concept. Left hand inside, right hand outside, pushing out, letting the clay expand around this finger. Once it expands, I'm slowly going to move this finger up very slowly, and then it should expand the clay. And the rule of thumb is when you shape, and even when you pull your walls up, your hand should not move up in height until at least 1 to 2 full rotations of the wheel has been completed, and that will help ensure your piece doesn't get thrown off center. So initially to shape, I'm going to start in the middle, left hand inside, and I'm going to start pushing out right here with my fingertips. You can start seeing that belly start to form. So then I'm going to start moving my left fingers upwards, and you can start seeing it expand up, and my right hand is just there in case I push too far out, or if I see the rim opening up, I can push that in. So shaping can be done with just one hand, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just prefer the rib because it covers more surface area, but the downside is you lose the feel of the clay. So I'm going to do a few more passes with my fingers, and then I'm going to move on to the rib. So now that I have this pushed out, I'm going to focus down here. So I'm going to push out right here to get the bottom a little more matched up. And then I'm going to then continue my passes going all the way up. And my right hand is just supporting the rim because I don't want that to get too wide. Okay. And you always want to make sure your fingers are lubricated and the inside clay wall is lubricated. This part of my hand is touching the clay, so you want to make sure that that more or less stays nice and wet. So you can just dip your hand in the water if you want. And then I'm going to work my way. I'm going to go a little lower now, and now I'm at the base of the clay. I'm going to push out just a little bit, and I don't want to expand that out too far, because oftentimes if you expand the base out too far, too fast, your whole piece will come crashing down. So now you can kind of see this egg shape more or less forming, and then I'm going to switch to the rib to just get this more and more round. There's a lot of water on the inside of my piece, so I'm going to fish that out with my sponge, keep my wheel spinning, hold the sponge between 2 fingers, and then soak up that water. The other benefit of shaping with your rib is you don't need as much water. You just got to dip this in water once and then start expanding. So the way to hold this, I put it in my left hand, pointer and thumb on top of the holes, and I just hold it upwards. And then I push the clay out, and I start lifting up. You can always invert it too if you want a sharper angle to push out. So this would be better when I start shaping the bottom, but I'm going to focus on the middle section still. So flip it around, and let's go ahead and start shaping. So I'm going to start right here. You can see the tool is spanning that gap. You can see the whole thing's expanding at a much more even rate. And I'm really just pushing that clay out. I'm gently lifting the tool upwards, and I'm really supporting the rim now because that can get thrown off center. All right, and now I'm just going to keep shaping. And because my hands are too wide for this opening, I'm just going to actually open this up a little bit, because sometimes if it's too narrow, your hand can throw your piece off if it touches. And I'm just going to keep expanding this until I get my orb. So thank you again for watching the video, and if you like this kind of videos and you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see anything else in particular in future videos, don't hesitate to comment below. Okay, my base is a little too narrow, so I'm going to open that up a little bit with my fingers. I want a wider base, so I'm just kind of pushing that clay ball out just a tad bit. And then I can really start pushing my clay walls out even further now. So I'm doing one round of shaping with my fingers. I'm going to switch back to the rib. Okay, so this rim section is pretty thick. So actually I'm going to do a thing called a fingertip pull. So what that is I'm just pitching the clay between my two fingers and I'm lifting up, and that's going to allow me to gain more height here so I can make the top a little more round. So I'm feeling where the clay is thick, and it's pretty thick all the way up to here. So I'm actually going to pinch here and do a pull from that section. And I'm just pulling that upwards, really thinning that section out, but I'm keeping the rim a little on the thicker side for now anyway, so I don't want to thin that out too much. So let's do another fingertip pull. And that got rid of some curves, but that's fine because I'm actually going to put that back. All right, so here we go, back to shaping, and now it's much wider for my hand to fit. And I really got to support the rim now because it's soft and thinner. You can kind of see it get a little floppy there. I'm going to flip it now and use this part, because I want a little more of a shoulder at the top. And then having my finger there naturally creates a little lip here. And I like having these kind of delicate narrow lips. Now I'm going to work on the middle section to get that a little more orbish. And now I'm really stretching the shoulder, and it's causing the rim to kind of cave in on itself. And that's fine. I can always adjust that later. Okay, and then right there, that's more or less the overall shape I want to get. I can thin out the rim now. And you can play around with it, whether you want it to be straight up, continue to curve in. I'm going to create a little lip, and actually I want it to go in a little more. So now I'm going to complete the final shaping with my fingers. So I want more of a dramatic shoulder. So I'm just curling my fingers, pushing it out, and kind of lifting up now. So this is my clay wall. Push and start lifting up. And then my right hand is compressing down the rim so that doesn't collapse on itself. All right, there we go. I'm going to cut the rim, and just like in my video to come out soon, cutting it with the needle at 3 o'clock. Thin it out one more time. And what I like doing with this metal rib is I like to create this little indent at the rim. So I'm using this little corner of the tool and I'm applying light downwards pressure at the rim where it meets the shoulder to create this lip shape to make it exposed. And then I kind of push that inwards to the rim so you can have a defined lip and a defined shoulder. All right, and then the rest. If I don't like this curve, I can use this to kind of shape and form it. And this bottom section, you can either cut that away now or you could cut it away when you trim. So I'm just gonna leave it in there for now because I don't want to mess with this. And I'm just gonna do one pass of this tool just to kind of even out the bottom because it did get a little wonky. And then just kind of adjust the clay wall at the top. So this is kind of like trimming. All right, and there we go. We have a very tiny orb vase. So I'll create the groove at the base with my wooden knife, wire it off. Oh, and then before I do that, I want to round the rim. I got my shammy to round the rim. All right, now that's nice and soft. We'll create the groove at the base with the wooden knife, and then we'll wire. If you wanted to cut this extra skirt off, you take your wooden knife, have the angle facing the direction of the wheel rotation, and you just push it in while matching the angle of the clay above it. So matching the angle, and then I just start slicing down until I hit the bat. There we go. And I take my needle, place it on the bat, slide it until it cuts all the way through, and I see it into that little trench I made, slice it in half, peel it away. And lastly, take the wooden knife, turn it sideways, and I can just cut all the excess away. So there we go. We have a nice clean bottom. The rest I could trim later, but we have our final shape more or less. So if you liked the way I explained this and you want to see more of these types of videos, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see anything else in particular, leave a comment below with what you want to see. And as always, thank you for watching.